Meme moun mwen, haïtien. Meme moun mwen, haïtien. Meme moun mwen, haïtien. Meme moun mwen. Haïti m'a retourné pour me sauver mon mouais. Si nous toujours payé pour ça dans mon yo fait. L'autre pays a pris parce que yo pas qu'à ouais, ça n'a fait. Ouais man, yo prend pas y'a dansé dans carnaval. Yo galé manchette, yo galé zam. Si yo galé YouTube, moi et m'a parlé femme. Deux moun moi personne bosse maman ma femme. Si nous fait problème, nous même fini va attendre blam, attendez. Yo pas attendez. Même si yo petit bio ça paraît gâté. Yo pas gâté. Yo pas jeter baiser, pas quand ça passe. Yo pas attendez. Même si yo petit bio ça paraît gâté. Yo pas gâté. Yo pas jeter baiser, pas quand ça passe. Moun Pétionville, moun Léogane, moun Carrefour, moun Châtelet, moun Jérémy, moun Gonaïves, moun Tigouaf. Ça musique nous met danser, mais c'est que moun Capou vit pour nous aider. Pas de yon qui plus fort que l'autre, non bagaille pour dire nous encore tenez. Frère man, yo prend pas l'œil à danser dans carnaval. Yo galé manchette, yo galé zam. Si yo galé yo sous mon moins, m'a galé pam. Le monde moins personne, comment n'a pas femme. Si nous fait problème, ou même si nous attendez blam. Yo pas attendez. Même si yo perdu bio, ça paraît raté. Yo pas gâté. Y'a pas jeté baiser, pas quand ça passe. Yo pas attendez. Même si yo perdu bio, ça paraît raté. Yo pas gâté. Y'a pas jeté baiser, pas quand ça passe. On marche, m'a chambouqué. On parlait, pas besoin de goûter. Danser sur les Haïti. On j'avais tout notre cap posé pour pays à Kakeri. On marche, tout pas de bouquet. On parlait, pas besoin de goûter. On danser sur les Haïti. On j'avais tout notre cap posé pour pays à Kakeri.
I keep meaning to fix that that lack of fade out. All right. Peace, everyone. Welcome, of course, to Community. This is Chief Yuyan speaking. And I want to welcome all of you, as always. I know, you know what I'm going to say. First-time listeners and all of you archive listeners who are tuning in fresh and brand new and have never been here before. Welcome, everyone. You know, and I trust that your day is going well. And those of you who are in another kind of time zone, that your day has gone well thus far. So, of course, you're listening to Enlightenment and Transformation. My name is Chief Yuya. Usual. And, you know, and peace to you all as well in the chat room. Let's see. Yeah, we got some of the good folks in. Got some of the good ones in the space. So, you know, peace to you all, man. You know, I trust that you're moving with strength on this day. So, you know, we're going to get into it. I have an appointment that I have to do, directly after this segment. So I can't really dilly-dally. So actually, I'm going to say this too. Any questions or whatever that any of you may have, just put them in the chat now. Normally, I know I usually do that at an hour going into the space, but anything that you have, just put it in now. So that way I'll get in what needs to be answered before I have to head out. Like I warned, you know, being obedient to my role as a servant, I warned you. I knew Sunday I knew was going to be a very hectic, strong coming up. But those struggles and the work, it brings out the hidden treasures. It brings those hidden treasures and other strange things to the surface in your own character, when you have to put yourself or push yourself beyond what is comfortable for you, and what takes you out of that auric or that astral slumber. Sometimes your astral bodies are just sleep, they're just slumbering, and you have to do certain things that um will push the push the bounds and the limits of that subterranean kingdom that exists inside of you, and that off-world empire that also exists inside of you. So it's good. Brings out good fruit, we'll say. Brings out good fruit. So, last night we were speaking, and we had a little I guess teacher moment, right? I guess they're all teaching moments, but humbling moment when we were attempting to look at the word Iwa, or look at the idea of good character and um, the common associations. Let me take this toothpick out my mouth. All right. There we go. Now better. So we were looking at some of the common associations of the term and of the idea, and how sometimes we may be looking at it with a bit more complication of law in mind, or with a sense of intoxicating thought. Sometimes we're intoxicated by the complexities of our thoughts, and we can't let them go. We can't get out of it. We won't pull away from it. We become sometimes a slave to those elements, or those elementals that we create through our different thought dispositions. And it's like I said, a lot of times, even in our defining of things, if we have a consciousness that is enslaved to uh, dogmatic religions and the religious patterns that we've been taught, then we begin to generally create general rules where we thematically push any new thing that it's funny, Anwar. That I can talk easy with a razor in my mouth. I'll show you in a second. I think I got one over there. I keep razors around me all over. But yeah, we keep kind of pushing ourselves into that space, into those themes, that don't allow us to really grow with whatever new information is given to us. We stay in the same sphere of the elementals that we create within our own mental kingdom, because we have an allegiance, or we're binded to these dogmatic elements. And sometimes that comes even in your spiritual work. You're doing the work, or you're learning to do the work, and sometimes in learning to do the work, man, we don't realize that you don't necessarily have to be so bound to the spirits that you work with. Sometimes people make these contracts, and they make these um what we call these high positioning, or in hermetic workings, they're called high-headed contracts. That's just the terminology that they use. Nothing very complicated. But essentially, when you're working with different elements or different energies, and when you're done doing the work, and the energy says, well, listen, if you keep working with me, we work together, or if you bind yourself to my purpose and what I want to do, um then I'll do things for you, right? But essentially, sometimes we don't realize that it's a trick. It's a trick, because your employee is saying, if you do my will, I'll help you. But that's not the currency of exchange. See, the currency of exchange between you and that employee, well, really it's melanin. But the currency of exchange is a vehicle of travel. That's it. But that employee already works for you. So sometimes what we do is we end up binding ourselves in a trick way. It's almost like sometimes what we do with government. We give government powers that they don't have. you know We give them powers that don't really exist, but it's through our beliefs that we give them something that they never had to begin with. So they trick us out of our own power. You see, they trick us out of our own power, so we end up giving it. You see, they can't just take it, but they can trick us out of it. Almost like a jinn tricking you out of your spells. It's a good question. I saw this question in the chat while I was talking. I'm going to address it, then I'm going to go back to what I was saying. Rachel Teller says, I was looking at the Anu site, and I was wondering if I can create and print out a blank check. I'm sorry, I was reading the money spell. I'm not currently in a position to have a checking account. Does anyone know if that is possible? Thanks in advance for taking time to read my question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vivid Eye. I know you were giving her the customer service email, which normally is good. But for a question like that, we don't need to answer that for you. We don't need to answer that, especially considering you're talking about one of the free spells on the site. Don't tie up customer service with questions about stuff we gave you for free. Figure that out. But Carria, CEO says, Rachel Taylor, do you have any old checks from when you had a bank account? No old checks, she says. Well, I shouldn't even have to answer this one. I'm gonna wait and see what somebody else comes up with. Actually, I was gonna say something. I'm gonna wait and see what somebody else comes up with. This is not something but she said, does anybody have any suggestions? So I'm gonna see what the students have for her. Okay, but there's some other options. But yeah, thank you, Vivid Eye, because normally I would say, yeah, go to customer service, but this is not really a customer service question. This is something that, you all could help with. Creativity. Hint. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying, sometimes through our repeated evocation of certain things, what we'll do is, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the answers that are given to her. What we end up doing is we connect ourselves, sometimes through faultless operation. We don't necessarily realize that creating those contracts and those binds are fruitless. There's no point in doing it because you're working with energies that are already employed by you anyway. But what happens as a result, we end up giving up our own thoughts and our own will and the process, our own ideas. So that's why when you hear me ask certain questions, no need to apologize, Vivid Eye. No need to apologize. Like I said, normally, yeah, we would send customer service, but that one, you're learning, man. That's all. Everybody's learning. That's why sometimes I say these things out loud when they pop up in the chat room, so that you'll know what to do going forward. She's asking about different ways she can alter a ritual. Bad answer, Anwar. Come on, y'all. Y'all can be more creative with this, man. She needs to use a check for a ritual, but she doesn't have a check. Is this really that complicated? Come on, man. Y'all reaching too far. Just simple answers. Keep it simple. And I know y'all are super brilliant. I already know you're smart. But try to bring it down a couple of notches. Give the simple answer. Yeah. Thank you, Anwar. There we go. Thank you, Jennifer. Draw a check. Create your own. Diana, there we go. Make a check. Make one. Print one offline. Nicole Mass, there we go. I would draw it in with a pencil. There we go. Now it's coming in. You can go to Google and type blank check. There you go. See? It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Now I'll give it to Rachel because normally I would say, Rachel, you shouldn't even ask that question. You should have known. You could just, but you know what? She's a newbie. So sometimes when you're new, you don't understand that, there is some some license there. There is some creative license. Kerry is telling her to open up a Wells Fargo bank. Nah, I ain't gotta do all that. They already gave good answers. That's it. Create your own check. That's all. Checks are nothing special. They're not printed on any special paper. You can go into QuickBooks or Quicken and print checks. So check printing is not a big deal. It's not like printing currency or anything like that. Keep it simple, man. You got enough complicated things that you have to look into, as you travel forward. But like I was saying, when we sacrifice and we give up our thoughts and ideas, we end up overcomplicating, like what just happened here, because sometimes we're binding ourselves to thoughts and ideas. So just like when you're dealing with conscious information, sometimes people think you immediately, when you're asked questions or you're explaining something, you immediately have to use certain words that you don't understand. You have to use words like matrix and spirit and metaphysical and universal and unconditional, and there's a group of vocabulary buzzwords, and your idea that you feel that you have to even connect with those words like that whenever you're being asked certain things is a part of your own dogmatic programming. So even in your consciousness, you begin to religiousize it by doing things like that. You see, by overshooting. You're not using your own thoughts. You're not using your own ideas. That's why I may say, what's Iwan Pele? Somebody give a wrong definition. And then I could say, well, where'd you get that from? And then they go silent. Because at no point did they actually use any of their brain power. Not once. Not even to recall what was taught previously, because the dogmatic programming is going to ritualistically supersede whatever is being, or whatever expression is being given to them, or whatever is being taught to them. You see, they're always going to fall back to the dogmatic programming. That's why sometimes it becomes very difficult for certain people to answer very simple questions. I'm not talking about the check question. I'm talking about, very simple questions about spirituality and things like that, because they've kind of locked themselves into communicating with certain beings, a lot of times beings of a lower vibration, but they submerge themselves into the worlds of those beings, and now those beings communicate foolishness out of their mouths. You see, you sacrifice your own intelligence by making contracts with low vibrational beings. You sacrifice your own ability, just like Rachel Taylor. She'll learn for the next time, but she probably thought, oh, I need a check. I how would I do this? How would I do that? And of course, respectfully, she's not just going to, she shouldn't just jump up and say, I'll make my own check. It's good that she asked. That part is very important. She asked the question, but eventually you'll start to understand or start to see the level of control, or again, implanting and sending your consciousness into something that you can take an ordinary piece of loose leaf paper and make it a check, because of your ability to send your mentality into it. Okay. I see a couple of questions. I'm going to try to get to them early. Just give me a second. Let me scroll up. I miss it. Oh, okay. Chowlumbos, Mark. I think you got your name backwards, don't you? Your name is probably Mark Chowlumbos, isn't it? But anyway, how does one break through the religious conditioning? You're doing it right now. That's how you break through it. And you choose your own religion. That's all. Remember, there's nothing inherently wrong with a religion. It's okay to have a religion. When you have a religion, you're just binding yourself back to something, binding yourself back to the source of a particular thing. So for instance, some people, eating is a religion to them, because when they're eating, let's say, for instance, if you're eating genetically modified organisms, if you're eating artificial, quote unquote, foods that are not really foods, right? Then essentially you have no religion. You have no food religion, because you're not binding yourself back to the source of your creation. You're binding yourself to something that's artificial. Like one may have a religion that binds them to artificial spirits. So the concept of the idea of religion is not inherently harmful, but certain religions are harmful. That's why when people say things like, well, all religions are essentially, they all saying the same thing and they all lead you to the same place. That's wrong. I've always said this. As a little boy, people used to say that. I said, no, that doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even make sense if you think about it. So you worship a false idol, and I worship a real one. Let's just say, for instance, and we're going to end up in the same place. Absolutely not, because the imbuement and the saturation and the submersion of our current consciousness in this life is what defines what our death will be, and the consciousness that we'll have in the next life. So if my consciousness is completely wrapped around and submerged in something that's unreal, or not unreal, but something that's bogus, then I'm going to live a bogus, I'm going to die a bogus death. My afterlife is going to be bogus. You see, so no, not all religions lead to the same place, but you can have just like you can be polytheistic, you can be you can have a polytheology, which I guess is really the same thing. But you can have multiple religions. So your food may be a religion if it binds you back to the source. Well, if the source of your physical body, the physicality of it, I mean, we know ultimately the source is ether, or it's that higher vibratory energy. But let's say from a subset principle, if the source of the body that you have is the earth itself, then if you keep yourself connected to the earth, essentially that becomes the religion of your body. You see, if the source of your thoughts is and of your mind is higher order functioning, and you keep yourself connected to higher order functioning and reasoning, then that becomes the mind, the religion of your mind. So each energy that you study, whether you could go to Kemet, and study different archetypes, or you can go to Brazil, you can go to Australia, you can go to South America. I mean, we could just go right through it, right? You can go to Persia, Israel. They all have their own indigenous energies. But eventually you start to realize that those indigenous energies are functions of the mind. And they are the religious binding of each component that exists inside of you. So your brain has its own religion. It has its own thing to bind itself back into, or your mind. Your heart has its own religion. Your speech has its own religion. Every component and aspect that you can conceive of has the possibility to have something that it binds itself back to, because it's a source of all things. Just like the religion of your emotions is your thoughts. The religion of your thoughts should be your spirit. The religion of your spirit should be your soul. You see, there is something that binds everything back to it, or originating source. All right. So when you speak about religious conditioning, one of the ways that you get out of, because really what you're really talking about is social engineering, the politicizing and social engineering of religion, where you're being bound to things through religious conditioning that are not your actual root, that are not your actual cause. Like you can bind me to a to a story of a martyr savior and all these different things, but that's not my source. So I choose for that not to be my religion. I don't want that one. Like I've said in previous shows, I don't have a religion. But if I were to have one, or to claim anything, if somebody said, you got to claim a religion, it would be my family. My relationships are my religion. Those are the things that ultimately, in the most collective sense, will bind me to my source. So if I cultivate that religion of my family, then that what comes from that religion will be whole. If I cultivate it from a holistic perspective, of course, then that religion in it would, account for how I eat, how I speak, how I dress, how I'm entertained, how I sex, how I die, how I kill, everything. We can go right through it. You see, so the multitude, or the polytheistic aspect of your religions is no different than when you go to certain regions, like again Nigeria, and depending on the village or the region or the province that you're in, there may be different energies that rule over it. In most places that I've been to in the continent, I like that. You go from village to village, there's a god of that village. Now, yeah, they're Christians and things like that, but they have certain gods that are the gods of that land. So let's say if the name of that village, excuse me, is I don't know, Ayin Sudo or Ayin Sudo Achim, you know, um, the god of that particular village may be, let's say if you're in Ghana, it might be like Nana Ayin Sudo Achim. You see, so there can be different deities in that sense, and essentially different religions, because different religions, different binding backs to a specific space or a specific source. Okay, so you break the religious conditioning by choosing your own, by looking at the fullness and the awareness of what you bring, and of your own body, and of your own mentality, and of your own thought, and the fullness of who and what you are, and say, okay, how many how many religions might I need? You know, I want my body to be more in tune to with the earth, where it came from. So okay, well, I'll eat things from the earth. I'll eat healthy things or organic things, so forth and so on. I want my emotions to be more binded or more bound to the energetic movement of good thought. You see, so I'm going to make sure that my emotions are properly connected to my thoughts. But of course, I'm going to cultivate that religion. What's the religion of my emotions? My thoughts. So I'm going to have thoughts that are advantageous for me, that produce good religion, or good emotion, because of course a tree is known by the fruit that it bears. That's how you break the conditioning. Now, some will tell you, oh, you break religious conditioning, you could learn about the history of religions, where they come from and stuff like that. But that's not going to do it. I'm telling you. There's a lot of conscious people who are awakened and enlightened, and they may even teach conscious understandings, but they still have the same exact religious bindings as they did before. So they just superimpose them elsewhere. You see, and your religious bindings in the West are your culture. So that's why you see, no matter what we do here in the West or in the Anglosphere, sometimes we still tend to fall back on Western cultural ideas and motifs. That's when you start to realize, oh, the culture is the actual religion, not the thing that they're calling religion. They're telling me, they're saying what I identify as being a Christian or a Muslim or a Baptist or an apostolic or Pentecostal, whatever it is. They're saying that's my religion, but that's not actually my religion. It's a secret religion. My religion is actually the culture that those things sit inside of. You see, and no matter what I do, I'm going to always bind myself back to that religion or bind myself to that culture. That's why I'm so conscious and I'm so indigenous and so African, but I won't leave this soil. No matter what, you can't get me to leave this soil, because I'm bound to the religion of the culture, which binds me to this landmass and the mentality that it does. So I start saying all kind of things, even within my conscious understandings, to stay here. Well, this is really a Mexim. This isn't America. This is a Mexim. And America, Amuraka. That's a Kemetic term. So America, it didn't come from Amerigo Vespucci. It's Amuraka or a Mexim. And, I'm coming up and discovering all these different things to justify my allegiance to this religion. I become my own evangelist, very committed to it. So that's how you break the conditioning, brother. Choose your own. Choose your own energy. Okay, there was another question. If I can find it. Courtney Jones says, how can I develop social skills in the astral realm? Okay. Now, normally I would say, what is the astral? I'll make you qualify your question, but I'm just going to kind of get into it also for the sake of time. So she asked, how can I develop social skills in the astral realm? Each plane, look at it like this. You have the astral realm, and like all things, you have realms and you have dimensions. So, like for instance, in the realm that you and I are currently existing in, there exist different dimensions. Just like you might have height is a dimension, width is a dimension, depth is a dimension, time is a dimension, space is a dimension, so there's many dimensions that exist within each realm, right? And each dimension or each plane of existence or plane of functioning requires its own set of social skills or its own set of norms. It's different. Like there's certain places you may go and people greet with a handshake. There's other places you may go, people will greet with a bow. There's other places you go and people may greet with a hug. So depending on the dimension that you're functioning within, your social skills, the way that you socialize, or the way that you connect and you navigate and you move amongst other entities and energies that exist there, it's going to change. You may go to one social plane and it's complete revelry. They're celebrating, they're playing cards and dancing and joking and eating food and things like that. So the way you may introduce yourself or bring yourself into that environment may be with that same celebratory aspect. That's why when we do certain rituals, when we want to contact different entities that exist on certain astral planes or astral dimensions, we bring different things that are associated with that plane. You see, like if you wanted to work with the fun fun energy, like fun fun is cool, or fun, like Oshun, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily give her hot sauce or peppers. You see, that's not the communicative call or currency for that particular dimension that she exists on. You may give her something that represents coolness, some aloe, right? Or even eucalyptus or water crescent. You may give to Oshun because water crescent grows by the water. See, these are the things that navigate you and allow you to communicate within that particular dimension. As opposed to if you go to a hotter energy, maybe like an Oya, you may give, peppers or something that's hot, or, because that's the communication for that particular dimension. All right. Now, Tareen asks, I think you're saying I'd like to know. That what you mean when you're talking about, okay, I think you're saying I'd like to know, is that what you mean? I think you're saying that. Is that what you mean when you are talking about doing contracts yourself to the Orisha like that? Yeah, okay, you put the word is. Sorry about the typos. I'm not on the computer. It's okay, bro. It's all right. I know it's daytime. You driving, you doing your thing, and we can figure it out. At least you're acknowledging that there's typos. So some people will send me, 700 words without one period or comma. So yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Okay, so yes, I'm talking about that too. If you do a contract with a high head, as they call it, or with an Orisha, you're already bounded to it by your own terms. So you should be setting the terms for all of the energies that you work with. You establish the contract. A lot of times I know we see in movies like Crossroads, I think you referenced Crossroads later down, where an entity or energy will come to someone and say, hey, if you do this, I'll give you this. I'll give you fame and fortune if you just do this. You know, that's media hype. That's dramatizations. It doesn't actually work that way. It actually works in the exact reverse. You would tell the entity, hey, I'll let you roll with me if you do this for me. I'll lift you up. Like Desi Arnaz did when he made his contract with Babalu Aye, when he was in Cuba before he came here. And he said, if you make me famous in America, I will say your name all the time. And remember on the show, he used to sing that song, Babalu. You can go to the Babalu Aye show that I did some years ago. And I think I played that song in the beginning. It's in there somewhere where you hear him singing Babalu, So he's singing to Babalu Aye. That's not a binding in a sense like that, but he established a term in the contract. You see, so you establish your own terms in that sense. All right. Orisha or otherwise, it doesn't really matter. All of those are energies that are younger than you and that are looking for your authority to come into play. You know, let's see. Any more questions? Okay, cool. You're more than welcome, or Chow Lumbos. You're more than welcome. All right. So yeah, man. So you just want to keep that in mind, as you're working with certain energies, because it will lock you into a way sometimes where you'll sacrifice the higher aspects of your thought. It's just like, let's say, if you want to use the Orisha as the example, I've seen people who have studied other systems or attempted to, not studied, but been exposed to other systems. And no matter what they hear from those systems, they always bring it back to the Orisha. Oh, that's just Shango. Oh, that's just Eshu. Oh, that's just a leg bar. That's just this. That's just that. That's it. No, it's not. It's the same disrespectful thing we were talking about last night when people, after you, put the time into really breaking something down to someone and really explain, they say, all right, I got it. Basically, what you're saying is this. You know, it's the same thing. So you have an entity that manifests itself on the planet and shows you the fullness and its total glory. It's like looking at the sun and then seeing the moon and say, oh, that's just the sun. It's the same thing. Light up in the sky. No, the sun and the moon are as different as night or as day and night. It's completely different. You see? But sometimes through our limited awareness, we make one thing another thing. You see, so we sacrifice the thought and the reasoning that we would have in that moment because we have a infatuation, or we have a group class consciousness that extends to different religious thoughts, and sometimes it's because of the beauty too. Like, certain beings will come to us and they're very beautiful, and because they're so beautiful and the experience is so beautiful, we'll fall in love with them. you know it's similar to like stories of the sirens. They sing their songs and they lure you in, and then you smash when you're in a boat, and then you smash your boat against the rocks and die because the song is just so beautiful. Or sometimes, as we think about um mermaids, oh, mermaids are so beautiful, right? But we forget that they go deep. So you'll hold on to that mermaid because it's so beautiful, and she'll take you down to the bottom of the ocean. You see, so a lot of times, it's the idea of the beauty that kind of brings us in, and in doing that, we begin to sacrifice our own intellect. We begin to sacrifice our own intelligence. You know, we begin to ignore our own rules, in a sense. Now, of course, it's beautiful because when we follow these different beings and things like that, we learn about those worlds. You follow a mermaid to the bottom of the ocean. You learn about the secret life of fish. You know, um, in the world that goes on there, depending on how long you can last. you know, um, but you got to understand that some of these energies, they've learned how to fascinate the flesh. They've learned how to become fascinating and enchanting to you, and how to make you fall madly in love with them. And some of them will even use an intoxicating sense of eroticism, you know, um, in order for your senses to not go off, for you to realize that you're in danger. So there's so many different ways sometimes that we can be pushed into a very miserable place of intoxication and infatuation, but ultimately we fall into the hands of these energies when we forget our own place, our own character. When we forget that if we meet a mermaid, we can tell the mermaid to stay at the surface for as long as we want. You got to know and remember what your energy is, why it's surface, why it's there. Um, hey, peace, brother Achille. I'm sorry, I just saw that in the chat. Greetings, Chief. My Baba sick. Pray for him, please. Okay. What's your Baba's name? All right, I'm waiting. All right. But anyway, I'll go on until you share that. Um so yeah, it's just something to give some thought and consideration to, how sometimes we get caught up in the elements. We get caught up, as we say, I got caught up in the spirit of the moment. Cleveland basketball. Okay, let me just copy and paste that. 1 second. I just don't want to lose it as the ticker of the chat room is slowly pushing up. I want to make sure I have your father's name here. Let me just copy and paste it real quick. Here we go. All right. That's Phil Senior. Okay. Now, Brother Achille, I'm not the only one with the magic. Or as someone said recently, what did they call me? What was it? The man with the magic voice? Something like that. I'm not the only one with the magic. Community. Ask your brothers and sisters to help you out as well. It's really who you should ask first. Okay? That's what they're there for. That's what community is there for. It takes nothing for people to, add a hand in that sense. But definitely don't think I'm like a pastor. Come on down to the altar. Let me pray for you. Don't do that. I got a lot of things going on. So, like right after the show, I got readings to do and I got work to do, right? So, I may not get to your father to tonight. However, you may have 15, 20, 30 people right now who in the chat who could say, "Oh, okay, I'll do it right now." You see? So, utilize the community that's in front of you. You understand what I'm saying, Brother Achille? Like utilize the community, because some of us see that Brother Anwar jump right in. I got you, Achille. You see that? It's right there. Use it. learn to tap into the gorgeousness of one another's soft and supple etheric bodies, because you're all children. You're all babies. You got those soft, supple, etheric bodies. Yeah, your ego, your hearted, maybe hearted, but you got some other stuff there that you haven't even. It's like virgin soil. And you got some soil that you've never planted yet, and it's so rich and fertile because it hasn't been turned over. None of the nutrients have been zapped out of it. Use the people who are with you right now. Okay. So, hey, Lotus Scholar, boom. You got two people right there. And there's people listening who are gonna jump into. Trust me. So Michelle has a question. Chief, I would likes to ask a question. Chief, I would like to ask a question about power. From the little I understood from the ticker's going. Hold on, give me some. I'm sorry about that. Let me make the window a little bigger here. Window, go bigger, please. Oh wow, okay, everything's frozen. All right, Chief, I would like to ask a question about power. From the little I understood from last night's lecture. What do you mean little? I kept it light. From the little I understood from last night's lecture, power needs direction, to be wielded in a way to benefit the community. Authority commands power. What component is added to the formula by the children? Good question. All right, so let me read the whole thing. This time I'll do it right. So she said, from the little that I understood from last night's lecture, power needs direction to be wielded in a way to benefit the community, or wielded in a way to benefit the community. Authority commands the power. What component is added to the formula by the children? Okay, so females or women represent the power, the Shakti, the power aspect of the community, right? And men represent the force or the authority or the command. Okay, but here's the deal. Children, see, this is why I'm saying it's such a good question. Wish I had more time to get into it, but this is why I say that women, you guys, when you hear me say things like women need to be submissive and this and that, immediately y'all go into this mode because of your social, religious, Willie Lynchism religion, your religious programming. As soon as a man uses the word, I don't like submission. All right, well, then keep your ass over there. Nobody's gonna want you anyway. You're gonna die alone. Fine. You know, all those things you jump up and say, I don't like that. I ain't doing that. We don't need you. You know, so it's to your own benefit, but you miss a lot. Like I said, we're explaining that the role that you're trying to jump into is not your role. You haven't even been exposed to your role. It's vast, and you don't even know it yet. So that whole power/authority dynamic between man and woman is also inherent in a relationship between woman and child. See, this is where matriarchy comes in. Children have higher energy than anyone in the entire equation. So if you look at a family model, man, woman, child, the most powerful out of all three of those are actually the children. So in that instance, women have, that's why sometimes you have single mothers, they say, man, I had to be mommy and daddy. I had to be the mother and the father. Of course, we know that's a fictitious statement because you can't be a father, but there is a role of force that the mothers have to take on in order to contain and put into order the very, very, very high energy and power of the child. Because the child has more power than the mother, and the father has higher energy than the mother and the father. So the mother ends up having to use force to contain the energy of the child or contain the power of the child. But now you may ask, well, what if I have a male child? Would that male child have high power and authority? Yep. And if you look at the umbrella model, who directly resides over the right ruling directly, you know, because really the man is the right ruler of the whole family, but he disseminates that role to the woman when there's children. So who has to become like almost like the man in a sense? Because remember, the woman has more force. It's not like the woman is forceless. It's just like it's not like the man is powerless. The woman has to use the force that she has to contain the energy of the children. Even though the man has more force, more authority, the woman does have authority and force in her, but she uses that to govern her children. You see? So in that scenario, the children represent high energy, high power, and even at times authority. So the woman, this is when it gets tricky. That's why I said, you know, you haven't been taught your role. Essentially, the same thing that the man has to do for the entire family, the woman or the mother has to do for the entire family of children. Contain high energy, right? Now, sometimes she doesn't have enough force. But you see, that's when Baba will step in. You know, some of you women, I've had women complain to me about that before. You know, I've been telling them to sit down all day. I've been telling them to do this all day. You walk through the door, say it once, and they go and they just go do it. You know, well, because I got the authority, but I also have greater force than you. I see all the high energy. I don't have to say anything. I'll just look over there. Oh, you jumping on the sofa? You know, you stood up on the dining room chair. What? You know, they hear my keys in the door and everybody's down on the floor doing homework or, you know, like, you know, because that's what the energy represents. So the woman, what she still does, even when she's going, you know, when it's hectic and the children are not listening, she's still using her high force because you have mothers that'll say, you know, sit your butt down, you know, but sometimes maybe the mother has so many children, she doesn't have enough force to contain that energy. You see, she doesn't have enough force to contain all the children. Sometimes we have too many children, you know, because we don't understand how this motif works, and the children end up overpowering us. So what happens is that some slip through the cracks. Sometimes, you know, we may have 10 children, but maybe your woman only has the force to contain the high energy of 3. You see, and she struggles with the rest, and maybe she then incorporates some of the older children to help her, and things like that. But if we understood how that motif worked, you know, the children, the man has the most force. It goes from top to bottom. If you can take the umbrella again and put the man at the top, and it, you know, I don't even have to explain it. I ain't gonna give no disclaimers. Just put the man at the top, biggest force. Children at the bottom, biggest power. Woman in the in the middle, because remember, the woman is really the balancing point of the family. You know, um, it's that nurturing aspect. I mean, I'm sorry, I just had an image. I'm gonna share the image. The nurturing point. Sometimes you may have children hanging from one breast, drinking milk. You might have your man hanging from the other breast, drinking milk. You know, she's feeding everybody, you know, because she's that balancing point, the balance point between force and power. She's the bridge. So that's why a lot of times when it's time to discipline those children and a man is about to bring his force, she'll try to stand in between. You know, well, let me go talk to him. Hold on, let me talk to him first, because she understands the potency of his high force. But he has to have high force. And the more children he has, or the more wives that he has, the more women he has, the stronger his force is going to be. And sometimes when you have a man of extremely high force, it is a good thing if he has a lot of women or a lot of children, to distribute that force evenly, so he doesn't end up, you know, distorting the family members that are right next to him and close to him. So um, that's where that comes in from. Okay. Um, Children are the higher power, you know, or the higher force. And I'm sorry, the higher power, or really like it's the higher energy of the family. Brother Byron says, Chief, that is my experience as being a Baba of 6, right? The children have so much clean, potent energy. Exactly, brother. Exactly. And they wear their mothers out. They wear their mothers out. It's not always just because, you know, she's cleaning clothes and cooking food, and it's not. It's just, it's a lot of energy to contain. It's a lot of dynamics, a lot of energy to keep an eye on. You know, even though they may all fit in the minivan, doesn't mean that they're all contained. You know, a lot of high energy there, but the force of a father can contain the mother or mothers and the children. So that you look at it from that scale, you see, at the top of the scale, high force; at the bottom of the scale, highest energy, highest power. In the middle lies the woman. So, you know, we use the motif as far as positive and negative. You know, like men are the intellect or the consciousness, and women are the power. And you know, it's just because it's simpler to look at it in dualistic terms. But yeah, when you add in, like you asked, you know, Sister Michelle, the aspect of the children, yeah, it's a very interesting, it's a fun dynamic actually. I guess depending on what part that you lie in, because you know it can be fun, but you know it becomes more dynamic and more interesting, absolutely, um, when the children are there. All right. So I see that you all are going to link up with Brother Akili, which is good. I'm guessing you know how to get to him. Of course, you students can always reach out to each other on the Sedula House site if you lack email addresses for each other. So never forget that. And those of you who have the Android app, you can also communicate with each other through the Android app. All right. So um, everyone can come on and get on in and see how Brother Achilles Baba is doing and do the work. It's not that hard. Not that hard. Even a little tea light candle that may burn for an hour and a half can do wonders if enough people do it. All right. It's all about the intention. All right. Brother Byron says 2 Shangos, 1 Oya, 2 Ifa, and 1 Iyami. Yeah, I know that. I know that little Iyami child. You know that story. I won't tell that one. But yeah, Brother Byron has a very powerful little daughter. You know, she's going to do some really amazing things. You know, when she comes of age, or probably even before she comes of age, because she's different kind of energy on the planet. But all right, I got to get out of here. I got to go do a consultation, and then I have another one. Then I have some more work to do after that. So it just don't stop. It just don't stop. All right. So everyone, I will see you tomorrow, first thing in the AM. Man, 7 a.m. Excuse me, 7 a.m. And for classes, seduluhouse.com. For readings, askosiris.com. All right. I'm still getting here and there. How can I sign up for a reading? And people have been sending that email from Sedula, from Sedula House, you know, and where in my profile link it shows you the link for readings. I don't know, man. All right, but you guys reach out to Brother Akili. All right, make sure he's okay. Make sure his father has the support. He has the support he needs. It's not hard, man. It's all virtual. Just send him an email, send him a message, and see what you can do. Don't just assume what you can do, but ask what you can do. All right. I will see you all tomorrow morning. All right. We'll get into it a little more. I didn't have the time I thought I would today, but an hour is more than enough. All right. Until such time. Peace.